Are you feeling overwhelmed by the noise of life between the demands of social media, the election, and the stress over this season? There's a constant pull of the outside world, and finding balance feels harder than ever. In today's episode, we're joined by Jennifer Pereira, a spiritual and business mentor who's transformed her own experience of corporate burnout into a mission to help others reclaim their identity and power. Jennifer shares how she broke free from the hustle cycle, found authentic alignment, and now guides leaders into building legacies that resonate deeply with their values. Together, we dive into the Akashic Records, so if you don't know what that is, keep listening, and the true meaning of self-care, and also ways to navigate that tug-of-war between staying plugged in and living genuinely. Jennifer doesn't just tell her story, she gives us tools to step back, reclaim our energy, and embrace the often messy but deeply rewarding human experience. If you're new here, you're listening to the How We Get Through podcast, a place for you to feel connected through deep and meaningful conversations with healers from all over the world. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and founder and CEO of the How We Get Through app. And my mission is to bring you affordable and diverse therapy resources to help you get through the hard stuff, all in one place and at your own pace. Welcome to the How We Get Through community. Welcome back to the How We Get Through podcast. Today we have Jennifer Pereira on the show. Woo woo.
Hi, Jen.
Hi. We joked that it was the Jen show, but you go by Jennifer, not Jen.
Professionally, yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody call you Jenny?
Yes, my parents and sister do. So if you're in like the family inner circle, the term of endearment, definitely Jenny.
Yes, for sure. Same with me. Like my brother's like, this is my little sister Jenny. And I'm like a 40-year-old woman. Okay, that's fine. Yes. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. We have a mutual friend, Maria. I think I call her a friend now. She's my VA, but she's just a wonderful person. And she was like, you should have Jennifer on the show. And I said, absolutely. So here we are.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm excited. So to give, and just for context, like for everyone inside the audience, I really am, to me, it's a privilege to be here because anytime people are taking their healing, their up-leveling, and their personal leadership seriously, that is a dialogue that I want to be part of. And I think this audience holds a lot of maturity compared to the typical. So I'm really excited for our conversation.
Yes, I'm so excited too. Okay, so tell us a little bit, how did you get here? So you have a big corporate background. You are a founder of multiple business. I mean, you have such boss energy and you have this beautiful pairing of this spiritual side. So can you kind of walk us through what happened to you?
Sure. Yeah. And thank you for recognizing that pairing, because I have to say that I think that the boss energy is important because we need to get things done and move it all forward. And there's also a part of me where it literally hurts my soul because it is the softer sides of us, and like that poetic artistry that is creating in the world, the feminine pieces that really actually is where all the inspiration and light channels through. So you recognizing that I appreciate that, because that's something that I've been working on as I mature, and that both of those energies can be felt and that it's not just one or the other. So the corporate career is actually what led me to the healing. Surprise, surprise.
Really?
And I'm sure, many people in this audience will resonate with that, like the typical burnout story. But I was essentially a mailroom success story where I started at a very, very large company in government in Canada at an extremely young age, and worked my way up the ranks. And through that, learned a lot about very large enterprise, learned a lot about extremely technical project management, could deliver, IT projects basically on a platter by the time I left there, with budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars, resources flying in from all over the world that were extremely technically skilled. And it was really, diving into the deep end. But I loved it. I was always kind of like a techie closet nerd. So it was really interesting to me to be involved in that type of delivery. And because it then, like that 11, 12-year career, the last 5 of it was doing a very large technical implementation. Most of the people in the project burnt out and or either like went on to like sabbatical holidays. Like after that 5-year delivery, it really fried the nervous system of a lot of very, very, very high level people in Canada, like extremely prominent positions in delivery. And so I kind of saw how we're put into this giant machine of production and what that all looks like. And I've worn various hats throughout the year. Like throughout the years, that's an extremely long time ago. Like I started there in 2006, right? And now we're 2024, rounding into 2025. And I've also run, a digital brand consultancy, but most notably was turning the corner with Bloom Institute. So after many years of my own personal development, spiritual discovery, and actually taking my own health and wellness and my mortality into my own hands, in 2013, I had a very large health scare that almost took my life, which is why I decided to leave the corporate world.
Can I ask what it was?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. We
respect that.
We can cover
But it was a life or death feeling, or seriousness.
Yeah. I was hospitalized and all of the things. And there's really nothing that Western medicine can do when we're talking about symptoms of the nervous system, like going really deep into that type of stuff, right? So adrenal fatigue then causing other organs to shut down, et cetera, right? Really high levels of cortisol, really high levels of adrenaline, and we start to think that we have heart problems and all of it, right? But the reason for it is stress. We have a very unhealthy, toxic environment inside of our body because of environmental factors. We're not eating the right foods. We're not moving in the right way. Anyways, excited to chat about all of those things as part of healing modalities going forward. But to just round off this story, because I'm much more interested in other questions that you have.
Yeah. I respect that.
Bloom Institute's actually really been the highlight and probably my favorite thing that I've done. So exploring the plant medicine landscape to such a degree that then realized that, there's nothing outside of us, and that even plants and even these other aids that we turn to aren't the answer. But really seeing, after serving hundreds of women, that they always need money and they always need mentorship to cultivate their art in the world, or the next stage of their healing once they've taken on, okay, I'm ready for leadership. What does that all look like? Those pieces started to come together. I'm currently running a finance company in solution to some of those things. But on the side, I've kept Bloom alive, and specifically the Akashic Records is that's my golden thread that I pull on with clients, and I would love to chat with you about that. That's been my love, and that's really been my give back, is working with the Akashic Records. So big corporate career, decided to step away, take on living as the artist, do all of the creative healy-feely things, led me to serving women.
I love that. How, when that felt like a life or death moment, how did you know to turn to energy or spirituality? Like, who was around you that said, hey, you should try this? Or was there something intuitive within you that was like, this isn't the right answer?
Yeah, the intuition and the inner dialogue became so much stronger and louder that I'm now able to very distinctly identify a voice, and several voices that are from outside of me that provide guidance. But it's kind of like the compass, the inner light just gets turned on because you're surrounded in darkness. Like, you literally cannot see a way out. And as you know, I'm sure many of the stories that have been told on the podcast, like when you develop nervous system symptoms for multiple years that have you in a shutdown, the level of anxiety that I had developed, unfortunately, was followed by depression. Anxiety and depression are our best friend. And you start a ruminating pattern that actually makes the inner world of the body even more toxic. Even though I was a completely healthy, normally functioning person up until that point, I'm very much that typical story of there's a body crash or a health crisis that kicks your spiritual wisdom on, basically, or turns the light on so that you get into right relationship with yourself and the world around you. It's very, very typical that you will hear healers having stories of having a health crash or a health scare, but it's because the body's the antenna, right? And we're not listening. Had I been listening, that would have been preventable.
Yeah, it's literally like shutting down. Like, you cannot walk, you cannot eat, you cannot do these things. You cannot keep going. It's literally like you need to stop. Yeah.
Physically. Yeah. Physically can't. Like, you actually can't. You're incapacitated.
Yeah. And how did that start you? So can we talk about the Akashic Records? Like, what are they? How did you start getting in tune with them? What's your journey with them?
Yeah. So again, for the more spiritually inclined, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to dive off the deep end because my understanding is that this audience is very intellectually mature. So I don't want to be gatekeeping or feeling like we need to tread more delicately because some of the things that we'll say will not be understood. Like my understanding is that you leave, or my desire and intention is that you leave with a deeper and more profound spiritual understanding of not only yourself, but the way we're doing life. So the Akashic Records is a realm or a dimension from the dimensions that we can perceive in which all of the data in all universes is accessible through an attunement of the body. So every thought, every record, every sound, every image, and all of existence is perceptible on a plane. And we attune to that plane to read it. So when people are Akashic Record readers, they're actually tuning in to a level of information based on the person in front of them, virtually or in person. And we're reading that person's field. Okay? And so we're connecting back to original light and original sound. So it is, we offer our lives in devotion and in service to God or the Godhead or universe. So we may see other beings inside that realm, but generally I prefer to be a direct channel. So functioning as an oracle, reading the person in front of you. That way there's no interference and you're not creating any room for distortion inside the person's psyche as well, where they're going, are these my thoughts? Is there a distortion? Am I being implanted? Is it what society tells me to think? It's like, no, it's a conversation between you and your higher self at the highest frequency that we can possibly attune to.
Is it kind of like a library? I know.
Your eyes just went like, whoa.
Like, tell me more.
Great.
I feel like is it kind of like a library in some way? Like is it like when you say record, I think of like a book. Like, do you have visuals of what it looks like, or are you just kind of like, it's just white or it's just energy, or do you feel like you're transported to like a library?
Calling it a library is exactly perfect because we have infinite realms and every life holds infinite capacity and infinite possibility. So we're looking at the trajectory that this person is on here and now in the present, given their current capacity. A library and a hall of records is an exactly perfect way of describing it. Every reader, given their gift, some people have clairaudience, clairsentience, visual gifts, etc., they will perceive it uniquely to them. That's why it's very important to find healers that you resonate with.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And how is it different than like speaking to someone's like spirit guides?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I also want to clarify how it's different than a psychic reading.
Great. Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of people will say like, wow, like, how do you know that you're so psychic? And it's like, yes, I have a psychic ability that assists me in doing this work. We all do, should we choose to open up our psychic ability. But when you're having a psychic reading, you are looking at a linear projection given where the person is at right now. And should nothing else change, here's where they're headed, right? So here's the most likely possibility and probability. Because the Akashic Records is the truth of your soul, given the removal of blocks, your current understanding, changing of your mentality, and you really taking on your growth and your leadership, anything that we have seen in the records is now possible for you in this lifetime. So we're really accessing the totality of who you could be if you're willing to make the shifts, because, you know, whether it's in this lifetime or another lifetime, everyone's story is written.
Right. So it's like the soul says, I would like to choose this life and learn these things. And you're just kind of that direct connection back, like, oh, hey, remember you chose this and where this happens and you really need to like do this for other people and save the world with these other people.
Exactly. That's a brilliant example because it's not, you know, I'm a fan of psychic readings, so I just want to clarify. Like, I like exploring and gaining as much data as I can from different sources, and then I will ultimately use my own discernment to apply what I feel is necessary for me. And having said that, I think that it's important that the big difference that we key into here is that this is where free will meets the divine will. Okay, so I'm going to say that again.
I was just going to say.
And working with the truth of your soul, this is where free will meets the divine will. So while we're all here inside the mystery to play out our piece of the puzzle that we're uniquely designed for, we do have the free will to decide how that plays out. You can be a jerk the whole time if you wanna. You're
Right.
still being dragged to your sole purpose, and maybe that's part of it. Like, not everyone is here to play a benevolent angel around.
Yes.
So when you're getting a psychic reading, that's very much a one-way transmission where they're telling you what's what, whereas an Akashic record reading is very much a dialogue. So I literally am an oracle. I'm a completely open channel, and the person is communicating to their higher self through me.
So are they like in a session, are they asking you questions or are you asking?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm opening the sessions being like, what would you like to focus on today? Right? We
got
set
it.
intentions and we're going in to do very deep soul purpose work. Like, I have clients that will come back for a session the next year because it's taken them an entire year to even integrate what they heard
Yes.
and to make the changes, especially if we're downloading blueprints for their business, for their bank accounts, for their relationships. It's like it really requires deep integration. So think of it as like all the therapy that you've done condensed into 90 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I feel that sometimes with other sessions I've done like Kundalini awakenings with Amanda who's on the show and I feel it's a very I'm like it's like a hard hit of like it's just like wake up, take off the mask and I'm like okay,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
what does that mean and how do I integrate that? And but
Right.
like it's I feel like that is the hardest part. There's something really great about like okay, tell me, give me the download. There's like a high. It's like I wanna know
Yes.
all these things, this feels so good, and then you go into integration and you're like, "What the fuck?" And I just think that is the hardest part of, like, the 3D world and the spiritual world and really kind of combining and transmuting and being here, being present. It's because we can escape to either one, and really the process of holding both is just really hard. It's
Mhm.
just really hard, but we
Yeah.
need both.
I'm really honestly, I want to say that I'm humbled and excited that you have brought this point up because I am concerned with the amount of spiritual bypassing that is occurring not only in our spiritual communities, but in our therapeutic communities as people discover alternative realms of connecting with themselves or alternative modalities. Whereas something that I would really like to impart on this audience, like I hope people take multiple nuggets or whatever serves them, right? I'm not
Yeah.
here to be a teacher or a guru. I hope that you see yourself in me and in the journey and you take what you need. Ultimately, our divinity is in our humanity. So anything that you're seeing and anywhere that you're gathering this information, the point is to be a kinder, more compassionate being in your everyday circumstances. So if you're having all the tarot cards, oracle, psychic readings, $25 hotline calls because you want to escape and or are also deferring your power to sources outside of you, not doing anybody any favors, pushing your healing even further away, not learning to listen to your own intuition and bring your body into right relationship with its own systems. So I would really want to encourage people to be looking at their spiritual lens with a lot of humility and taking on work that they think is going to actually advance them in ways that are healthy versus just I'm looking for a belonging. Here's another Instagram community I can jump into and I'm going to start shaking feathers and rattles and things that are appropriating, etc. Like I can't stand that. I'm not for it. I don't teach or learn under lineages that support any of that style of work. And I really want to call women back home to their hearts. Like, that's the point, is to have deep realizations in your own heart and then to use that learning and that knowing and that sweetness to make changes in your life that then affect how you show up in the world in a way that is hopefully a little bit more graceful for you and
Yeah.
then therefore for everyone else.
Okay.
I know
I
I'm
have
saying a lot there. I'm
no,
just
I
saying, like, don't come to the Akashic Records to play because I'm not going to play with you. And
yeah.
it's one of the most playful, fun, easy, light going things if we can let go that healing has to be hard because it doesn't. That's a huge thing they teach. But also, don't mess with your soul purpose. Don't mess with your soul. Don't mess with your spirit.
Yeah. I love this and I want to have a good conversation around this because
Okay.
I feel like everyone's spiritually awakening, right? So
Yeah.
it's this next cool thing, right? Just like having a therapist. Like if you didn't have a therapist, I don't know, 10 years
Yeah.
ago, like everyone's talking about their therapist. So there's what is the trap that women fall into in I have to make this into a business, or I have
Little.
to exploit
Yeah.
this, or I have to do X, Y, and Z, where it doesn't become personal, it becomes external in some way. Like, what are the traps that we're falling into as women as we're on this spiritual journey?
So before I offer perspective on that, I would love to know what you think because you're in the therapist's chair. Like, what are you observing?
I mean, I kind of go back to like patriarchal ways of living that we're just taking this very feminine, artsy, creative, vibey thing and trying to build this structure around it in the old way. Like get on my newsletter and I will blah blah blah, which there isn't anything bad with that, but it
No.
almost feels so counterintuitive. How are we, and I'm guilty of some of those things too. And I think that's where I don't want to fucking do that. I think that's where I'm like, how do I do this the way I want that feels organic? But going back to what you said, women want money or need money and mentorship.
Yeah, they do.
So that's where I'm like, well, I need money and
Yeah.
mentorship.
Yeah.
How can I not do this in a way that doesn't feel good to me anymore?
Mhm. Well, from your perspective, and you brought up, capitalism when we're talking patriarchy, and we're talking about all these words that are very heavy and loaded, and I actually don't desire to bring a whole bunch of social activism into this conversation, but I do desire to really look at what women are best suited to do in a way that actually helps them, because only they know what they're best suited to do. From the therapist chair, do you think that taking on running a big business that can actually be in service to hundreds, potentially thousands, and maybe millions of people is something that the average woman is going to be good at when her gift is woo woo?
That's hard because I feel like the way that I was raised, you can do anything.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so why not? But is that why we're here?
Boom. Yeah. Is that why we're here? Like, we're creating more systems. Systems, by their very nature, are oppressive. And do we have to monetize every single thing that we love, are interested in? Like, since when did women's knowing become something that we need to exploit for profit? Like, if you have it in you to run a business and are able to be in service from a place of compassionate detachment and actually run an enterprise and ensure that healing is happening in the manners that it needs to. So that I'm talking structural integrity on multiple layers now that's needed, right? If you're not able to hold that container or that calibration, then the energy that you're in is helping. I desire to help. I want to be a good girl. I'm a helper. I healed myself and now I'm going to show other people how to heal themselves.
Yeah.
And the energy of helping is something to really be looked at. Like, it holds a frequency, like everything does, right? There's every energy on the planet has an equal and equivalent opposite. And there really is only one universal law that we ever need to take heed of, and that is the law of one, right? Which is cause and effect. So when we desire to help, we're saying that people by their very nature are not capable, versus creating structures and or platforms that help them lead themselves to their own answers. So if doing your spiritual work or offering your spiritual gift takes a toll on you, requires many hours a day or per week to stay in peak physical condition and spiritual condition to really be what I call fit for service, you also need to look at capacity to be running a business and integrity alongside that. And I see a lot of women desiring to run a spiritual business. And I'm the biggest fan of it. I have done business coaching. I now do spiritual mentoring, offer advisory in that capacity. And I just, this isn't a caution, by the way. Like, I'm saying that I'm super encouraging of it. It's just really look at, are you trying to monetize something that you're passionate about because you feel like you need to, or it's the next step in helping people? Or is it really the evolution of our species? Like, is creating another Instagram account where you talk about whatever modality, like, is that the thing? One of my clients a couple weeks ago had a huge breakthrough where she's like, oh my gosh, I finally realized that Instagram is not my business. And like the relief and how we were able to refocus her on how to use that channel, how to speak on that channel, what it's actually for, what distribution is serving, etc., and keeping her in alignment with the actual offering and who she is and all the other things she needs to have correct in her life and support systems and structure, admin, bookkeeping, yada, yada, the things we don't want to do to enable that to happen, was such a sense of relief for her, and it's just like 10x everything because now she's got the right frame.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, the frame. So just look at like the energy of helping.
Yeah.
And where a person might still be in spiritual infancy. And I also want to caveat this by saying that I think the most beautiful thing is that when you take a step forward and you reach your hand back to help the sister beside you. So don't not start the spiritual business. Start it. I'm just saying, be in integrity with the things that you're doing because you are going to suffer greatly if you don't. And I say that because I know it doesn't work. And I know it doesn't work because I have failed at many things.
Have you mentored someone that was like, I'm going to start this spiritual business, and you're like, girl, you got to do a lot more work? Like it feels a little unsafe in that way? Or
yeah, lots of times, if not anything, most of the time, because we think that it's just as easy as an Instagram account. I'm like, no, Instagram is what opened your eyes to the fact that there is more in terms of a spiritual capacity to learn from, but that itself is not the business. Yeah. You offering your gift is the business. Helping people is the business, and then exchanging value for it is the second piece, right? So the financial piece. So it's like all the other things, like you might be a great content creator. I was like, oh, so you're a marketer? That's very different than being a gifted healer. Yeah. And many times we also have spiritual businesses and we're not healers. So being very, very clear in that distinguishment as well, because even the word healer is kind of funny. Like I hate it, but I don't know what else. Like it just helps people identify and place you in time and space, but you're not healing. You're creating you're creating the conditions in which the person can self-realize.
Yeah. And they choose to do or not do, and you're not attached to that. Yeah.
You know what, Jen? Something else around this that I think is really fun and interesting, and I want to repeat again, like, please start the spiritual business. Like, we need more awareness on the planet. But telepathy is increasing on the planet at this time. It has been for a number of years now. And I think that people's awareness of these things being needed is what's increasing versus the need for more social media channels about it. Like people are having their own recognition that there is a deeper layer of their cognition that they can access.
So are you saying like almost like what in the spiritual awakening of a lot of people, they're excited. They're like, did you know that we can do this? Did you know that we have access to that? Like there's a little bit of a wanting to like be so excited and tell everyone.
Totally. I mean, have you ever talked to a kid that like has done mushrooms for the first time? They're like, no, they want to tell everyone. And it's like all they talk about. Yeah. You have these big, whoa, it's down levels. It's like, okay, bro, like calm down.
Yeah, chill out. Yeah.
We know. So when I say telepathy is increasing, like our brain and our body is connected to the information superhighway, right? And we're exchanging data at faster rates than ever. And I have seen and felt and sensed that people are actually realizing that they themselves are the transmitters.
Yeah. Which again, I think part of my purpose is like in that, how are we staying grounded enough to that it's then helping us versus hurting us and helping other people and not hurting other people, right? And I think that's where you're talking about the Instagram people and all the other things. Like, put anything in that place. Put therapy, put religion, put money. You replace it with something else. As long as, like, how are we staying grounded? How are we helping ourselves? How are we loving ourselves? How are we loving other people? No matter if you're connected, if you're getting downloads, if you're doing shrooms, whatever it is, how are we kind of coming back to that part? And I think part of that's a little bit of the integration too. That takes time to then talk about something.
Well, so even the word download is interesting because I'd say the word download has gone mainstream in the past couple of years, and it's very typical vernacular and language that people use now. But a number of years ago, you wouldn't have used the word download. Like that definitely meant that you were a wacky, tobacco, woo woo type of person. Like you're basically out there. But now we know that it is. It's a message that you have formulated and or received. You've had an insight. That's what I actually desire to say. You've had an insight, whether you've received it or formulated it. But when we have these insights, it is the grounding that you're talking about that is required to actually manifest. And when I say manifest, I don't mean manifesting like law of attraction stuff. I mean to make real in the physical. It is the creating the conditions or changing your conditions that is required. Otherwise, insights are insights, and you can just be having, all these downloads one after the other. And also, so what? That's why it's like in the spiritual attainment, be very careful, because you can start to pedestal yourself or think that you have a higher knowing and then acting differently versus bringing yourself more down to the level of the people.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a little bit of the opposite, where I'm like, oh, I don't know shit, and this person knows everything. And I've had to find my authority in that, and I'm like, so I think it's both sides of the coins, and maybe yours was the opposite. It's like, how do we kind of integrate these maybe shadow pieces or places or things about us that need to be looked at? Because why am I not claiming my authority?
Yeah.
Or why am I claiming so much authority?
Yeah.
Right. And trying to find the balance of that.
The word authority is really great because the prefix is author.
Oh.
Yeah. So you're writing it all and you're creating it all.
Yeah. Or I'm noticing when I give someone the fucking pen and I say, oh, excuse me.
Yeah, you're deferring when we're deferring our power, when we're deferring our authority. What we're saying is we're handing them the pen, and then now they're scripting what our reality is.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very dangerous. I've got a few answers that I think might be unexpected. And again, they're not answers. This is just from my life experience and the hundreds of women that I've worked with at this point. You'd actually be amazed at how very core key pillars of our life play such key roles in this, like our nutrition, like our sleep, like a meditation practice or a journal with which to record and witness ourselves and experience our feelings and actually process in a way that is calm for our nervous system. Creative outlets such as dance, which is actually clinically proven beyond any other therapeutic movement to be good for our bodies and works on the serotonin and dopamine in our brain that even medication can't reach. So like I love dance if you need to, for example, are forms of art therapy. But I really want to zone in on the nutrition, like movement, exercise, meditation, journaling piece. Because we hear that you are what you eat, but I don't think that we really take that to the deeper level of what it actually means, right? Like we're constantly shedding our skin, our organs are regenerating every day, every month, every year. So they go through life cycles of their own where they're actually at the cellular level, they're regenerating. So you have like a new liver after a certain amount of time, right? These things are happening. And so what we're putting in to our ecosystem is what's informing the fertile ground that you have to work with. And we know that so much of our mental health and our brain health actually comes from the gut. It's our gut health that informs all of that. So like I'm saying, like you could have the wildest downloads in the world, but if you're not in a physical condition to be making changes or as I said, fit for service, you can't really affect change. You can't. So it's like, I encourage people to look at what they're eating. Like the number one thing that I start with, it's like, how are you treating yourself?
Listen. Yeah.
These are ultimate acts of kindness and compassion towards ourselves that really, really matter. They make such a huge difference. But also just the energy and the vitality that we're even able to display and the fortitude that's required to make changes. It's just all too much when your whole system's out of whack. Like you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think food, it's not that it's hard. I just feel like there's so many do this, do that, don't do this. I can't eat nightshades. I can't, like, there's a lot of rules. And so for me, it gets like free, like I get a freeze response. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But I do try to honor what I'm feeling in that moment and try to eat the least damaging thing possible, the least processed. But
Yeah.
what I have noticed is my drinking is that almost cannot drink alcohol anymore. I like,
Really?
I
Good job.
know. And I'm like, it's so awkward at like events. And I'm like, they're like, why are you drinking? And I'm like, oh, I just like, I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't feel like it anymore.
Yeah.
But like, I'm still a lot of fun, guys, you know?
Yeah. I've been sober for so many years, it would be strange to see me with a drink at this point. And
Yeah.
I'd just like come out and say it plainly. I couldn't access my intuition and I wasn't as mentally strong under the influence of alcohol, even though like I'd never been drunk. But even after a drink, I just noticed the
Yeah.
dullness of the capacity. And I was like, I don't like it.
Yeah. Yes.
No,
That's it. That's it.
I'm up to bigger things. Like this isn't
Yeah.
doing anything for me. I don't care. I'm still the life of the party. It does not affect.
Right. Right.
What's about to go down was never predicated on what was in the glass. I can
Right.
assure.
Exactly.
I was like, why am I taking in empty calories and or poison? This is not to say that I'm not a proponent of people that drink socially. Like it doesn't matter. You should do whatever's within your comfort level. But what you're saying is not unusual.
Yeah.
That we let go of our desire for alcohol. It's like the palate kicks it out.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like a conscious choice of like, I'm not going to drink. It was like me listening to my body and be like, ugh.
I don't like that anymore.
I don't like it. Yeah. So, and again, I don't need to be like I am sober and you're not, or it's just, I'm like it's like the flow of life. It's like every day I'm like, okay, what's happening? How do I feel? What do I need to do? Okay, let's dive into the war on consciousness because I feel like this flows beautifully into that. And where do you think we're at with that? Where is it hitting women? Where is it hitting men? Is it different?
Yeah, it is different. So just for context, I asked ahead of the show, I asked Janice if these are some of the topics that I would like to discuss. And something that's weighing really heavy on my heart at this moment is this war on consciousness. And then we started going to like, what is that? Like, what do you even mean by that? And what I mean by that is the systemic attack of not only our state of being, but how our minds work and where we give our energy and attention. And why the distraction of that focus matters and is calculated, really, to create more division. So we are under a state of attack on this planet at this time, which I think that anyone that is paying attention to any kind of news knows what I mean by that. It's not just the middle. There is a very real war happening in the Middle East that I want to be very aware of and speak to here in a manner that is sensitive, because millions of people are being impacted by that right now. And we are not immune to that in the West, especially since the West is funding it. And a lot of what's happening is directly impacting people, all over the place. But there's constantly wars happening that aren't as sensationalized in the news. And when we have a war on consciousness, which is not just a spiritual war, it's a war in the way that we think, what we're actually battling is ourselves. We think that people on foreign soils or in different territories are the other. We can't relate to them because of different beliefs, different skin colors, different ways that are cultural or social that we can't identify with. And that differentiation, instead of that diversity really being like, that's the beauty of this tapestry that actually gives us so many more resources and schools of thought to work with, our primal instinct is like, no, they're the other. They must be bad or wrong. And therefore we must pillage, steal, and or burn down in order to preserve our sense of safety or being. So really, when we are at war outside of ourselves, what's actually happening is a war inside of ourselves where our self-preservation is being threatened. And these threats are actually happening through social media and mainstream media, to the point that social media executives, so multiple documentaries have come out about this now. I'm sure that tons of people in your audience have seen these things. It wouldn't surprise me if you've had other experts talk about the dangers of social media. But social media executives themselves are like, I would never let my kid have a smartphone. I would never let them be on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, because literally our neural pathways are hijacked to the point that we actually don't know which thoughts are ours anymore, and it affects our identity. So I would love to, with an open heart and with curiosity, for every person that hears this podcast, whether they hear it today or 10 years from now, to actually question if your identity is your own, if you fully are sovereign in your thoughts, your being, your lifestyle, and who you have created, the image of yourself that you have and where that has come from. Because even I, who am in very deep work and study and contemplation around this, am very aware of how subliminally programmed and impacted that we are. And this is evident because of the consumption that is occurring and the distraction that keeps us in that self-preservation and keeps us as seeing the other as other, versus when I said the one universal law is the law of one. You would have compassion for your fellow man, because you'd realize that hurting them is hurting yourself. But you can't, because you're so busy following the influencers, buying their beauty brands, wondering how you look in yoga pants, just like the superficial level of bullshit. And it's like, I would challenge most people that you are not actually yourself. You have been molded. Your thoughts are not your own. How did they get there? Like, oh, you prefer like orange lipstick. Well, who says? Like, how did that preference come to be? Have you really looked at everything that shapes your identity and understood from where did that form and how did it form? I'm saying a lot of things. I'm going to pause to take a breath. I'm sure you have questions.
Yeah.
But this all boils down to our self-concept.
Yeah. I think I read an article, which, like, is this a TikTok or is this an article? Already speak into it. But the like loss of culture, which we talked about, shift in culture, but the loss of culture through social media, that everyone's starting to look the same. Everyone's listening to the same music. Everyone's wearing the same thing, right? It is that loss of individuality, loss of other, and I think our desire to be within, that's not the word, a desire to belong. It's like they're not praying. What's the word?
Praying is a great word, but Prey.
Yeah.
Praying,
Yes.
yeah.
Predator.
Yeah. Great word.
On our sense of belonging, our fear of sense of belonging. And so we have to all like the same things and look the same way.
So when you put your phone down and you observe people in the grocery store or coffee shop around you, do they look the same as the people on the phone? Because my observation is no.
No, nobody looks like that. I don't look like that.
They don't even look like that. The images are manipulated.
Right.
The images are manipulated. And now we have AI deep fakes to the point that you can't even actually tell if an image is a real image or not. But there's a generation that is more susceptible to this than others, because they're just like this all the time.
Yeah. Which is generation.
So I'm talking about the information highway until it be increasing on the planet, because it is. So that generation being very, very, very susceptible to this extremely real mind control actually has at its fingertips the ability to cause a huge social movement and an entire uprising that would totally change the political climate that we're seeing. Everyone's like, vote this way or vote that way, but really what we're doing is creating more division. And it's actually voting with your dollar, and it's voting with your attention. So when you starve out the systems that are holding you hostage, when you take your attention away from it, those systems cease to exist. So stop buying the influencer mascara. Stop buying the stupid beauty brands of the celebrity. Like it doesn't matter. They're not impacting or influencing change. They're only influencing the fact that you're not good enough. So buy my thing to fix you.
Yeah.
And that goes to resources at the highest level. It was like, I'm not stretching when I say it goes from mascara to oil real quick.
Yeah.
It's all the same. It's the war that's internal that says, I'm not enough. But I'm not enough is the natural shame, guilt, resentment. Those are core human feelings that we all have. It's the pain of the original separation. That's your pain from source. We all have that. Buying the latest thing or taking on the latest fad is not going to cure you of suffering, which is a very real and normal human condition. It's our transcendence of suffering and how we think about things that can do so. So again, if we weren't distracted and if we weren't spending every last dollar on consumption, you could actually be spending your money on ways that increase your vitality, allow you to contribute to change, allow you to be part of coalitions, allow you to build community, allow you to self-govern in ways that let you be a lot more free and let you have a lot more choice. And like, you're not waiting on the government to save you, because that's not why government exists to begin with. It's like so many people defer their power. Where's the UN in all this? Like, the United Nations is not an action-taking body that is here to step in international affairs. It has no jurisdiction. That's not why it exists. People are like crying out, but they're consistently deferring their power. And it's like, but you're still in the consumption hamster wheel. It keeps your attention sucked dry, and like, you're not being part of the change. Look at the change inside your own household. Look at the change inside your own body. Look at the change in like the lineup of people at Trader Joe's or grocery store or whatever, right? It's like, that's why I keep saying the grounding is in being a whole human versus the spiritual bypassing, because how we act in our daily lives actually does translate to the world stage. We are the government. All of those people are there because of you. So this deferral of power is a real thing, and it is because our nervous systems are tapped out. Like, we're literally hijacked. You don't have capacity for more. But that's the game.
Yeah.
So put your phone down.
Yeah. And I think too, I could say a lot of women, I'm also a mother, will tend, when our nervous system is tapped out, will tend to go to it for dissociating. Sure. Like, for so sure. It's, but it's not the thing that actually feeds us or regulates us. It's a thing that is just, it's like, you can turn your brain off. Yeah. It's actually feeding you messages. And so you're like, yeah, it's.
Well, notice how your attention, your energy is absorbed by that system. So you said feeding. You are literally a life force. You're a life force for the machine. Like, that's crazy. It's important.
It makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. Like, it's important to unplug to a very large degree. Yeah. And or like a suggestion, because people are like, well, I don't want to live a life that's entirely online. Hey, I use social media. I have professional and personal profiles everywhere. You can look me up. The difference is in who I'm following and my intentional use. So you're what's on your feed is because you chose it to be there. When you're doing your doom scroll, or like you're relaxing at the end of the night and you're looking at the things, it's like you clicked follow. So you made that choice. You told the algorithm what to show you more of. Unfollow things that don't make you feel amazing. If it's not inspirational quotes, good and healthy food, and things that inspire you and uplift you, it's got to go. Like, you need to be in charge of the program of your brain. And all of that is the information superhighway that you're driving along to put content in it. So your perspective is informed by the outside world, and then you're reprojecting outwards. And then that's what you're experiencing. But it's like, you created that.
Right.
But who's the you? That's why I'm asking, are your thoughts and feelings even your own, or manipulated?
Right.
I have a book that I want to share.
Ooh, yes.
So this is The Shaman's Path to Freedom.
Ooh.
Why I love this book is I wish that this is one of the books that I had written. So pain we cannot escape, suffering optional. Okay. This book really does an incredible job of the reframe of, it's not what we're thinking, it's how we're thinking about it that causes us suffering. And it takes a lot of spiritual information and condenses it into just day-to-day practicality. And I love
I
it.
love that.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
recommend this book just about everywhere. Shaman's Path to Freedom.
Awesome. We'll put in
Yeah.
the
And
show
it's
notes.
really is like we have an addiction to suffering as a species.
Yeah.
And it holds us back in our evolution, honestly, because we stay inside mental loops of rumination. They exist for very good reason. But if you're looking to transcend to your next level, you have to examine not only your thoughts, but the thoughts you have about the thoughts.
Yeah. Which that's a very, I have a good question about that. Transcending to the next level doesn't mean you're without pain.
Totally.
Because I
Doesn't.
think that's a very good, again, the spiritual bypassing of like, once you're awakened, you're gonna blah, la, 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 la. And I'm like, girl, I've been awake and this is hard as shit.
Yeah.
Like, can I go back to sleep? No, just kidding.
Yeah. Honestly.
It's not. And
No.
at the same time, there is a lot more comfort in a different perspective. For me, the spiritual awakening is the broader perspective, is not being so here in the like day to day and being able to pull up to the like span of lifetime or lifetimes before that or future, and really getting that perspective. You can kind of get out of it easier. Like, I have to go through this. There's a reason I'm going through this. I believe that for me personally right now. And what am I learning about myself through this that is going to be helping me in the future, or that I'm healing from the past? Like, just this different perspective. And that is hard shit. That is like facing stuff. That is like having things come to the surface and saying, I want to deal with this. I want to heal this. I want to understand this.
Yeah.
And that perspective has helped, even though it's hard.
Do you feel with sincerity that it has helped?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
I feel better because of it. Yeah. Thank you.
I wanted to reinforce that because the reason that most people don't do this unpeeling and unpacking that you're talking about is because they're afraid. They don't want to know what's on the other side because of what it will require of them.
Yeah.
You got to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you want to maintain status quo, which is suffering, you got to change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or your body will be like,
me.
Or your body will say, you got to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to come. Like, listen, guys, it's going to come on some level. And then free will, divine will, you get to figure out what that is for you. Like, our paths aren't going to be the same as the people listening, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it is like, we're all just trying to help each other and help ourselves. And again, when it comes from a pure place, you know when to be humble, you know when to lead, and you know when to sit back.
Yeah. When you said, listen, guys, it's going to come, that's so important. It's so important to understand that everyone faces their reckoning. Everyone. No one escapes it. You will have a reckoning in your lifetime of one thing or another. No one escapes it. That's why it's so important to be kind, and why the tenets of spiritual teachings are to be kind and compassionate, because you never know what another person is going through. Despite how they're presenting right now, you do not know internally what their landscape currently looks like. Not to say most people are in crisis most of the time, because they're not.
Right.
But I'm just saying, as you said, and we're two strangers, like, it's very clear to us that the reckoning comes for all of us. That is a universal truth. So that's why kindness prevails. We think that it's all these things that you're going to get from the teachings that are so profound. What's profound is the courage to implement the change.
And what I've found for me personally is that, and I'll cry about that, like the unconditional love that still is unfolding for me, for myself, to then really give that to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's not a perfect thing. That's not I feel unconditional love for myself every day, and I can give this to other people, but it's the foundation of healing for me is that part, and it will continue to unfold. I'm not done yet. I'll never be done.
it seriously excites me is seeing men in very prominent positions starting to use the self-love word. Because it's not like the bubble bath girly thing. We're talking about very deep realization that this is not a dress rehearsal, it's your one life. And if you don't figure your shit out, or at least be willing to look, it's gone. You're done. Next reincarnation, repeat something else. Some other shit show awaits you. And the loss of opportunity to make changes for yourself, your loved ones, your families, and your community that is wasted each and every time that we don't take it on. Self-love literally is the core and the root of everything. Everything. It's the most courageous thing that you can do, is be willing to look at the relationship with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you
I love
crying?
it. Oh, because it's just so, I mean, the planets are fucked up right now. So I'm in a deep rage, anger, sticking up for my younger self, sticking up for, I mean, I'm just like using my voice, the throat chakra. I mean, there's so many things, and and I think there's just a softness and a sweetness around that, like self love that is just, it's like you never, I feel like you never land there. It's like you get there and then it just keeps kind of growing. And sometimes it shrinks and you're like, "Oh, but you remember that? Remember?" Like, I don't know, it just, I don't feel like it's a solid thing. I just feel like it kind of ebbs and flows with you as you can, again, get that perspective or ground and remind yourself that it's gonna be okay. You didn't fuck up. You shouldn't feel guilty. I mean, should, whatever. Like, all the narratives that I think we create in this lifetime, maybe from past lifetimes, that I'm trying to hold space for and rewrite. Like, it's just a lot. But I also like wouldn't fucking, I would, what else am I doing? Well, life would be so boring without it, you know? I'm still like, yes, let's do this. So, yeah.
Look, I think there's some majesty in acknowledging that the human experience is wild. Like, existing is a big ask.
Yeah. It is.
Existing is a whole thing. Like, you're here to experience the full spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big ask.
Yeah. And sometimes that perspective is helpful for me. Like, okay, if you're like a spirit, you don't feel shit. Like, you're not happy, you're not sad, you don't know pleasure, you don't know guilt. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, like, I'm good here.
Yeah.
Let me feel all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we're reminded of that existing is a big ask, can you really get it wrong?
Or can you just experience it?
Yeah, like I like to go into this inquiry with my clients and remind them the peace in their hearts that's available to them when we're in the truth of, like, there's no wrong way to be a human.
Yeah.
There's just not.
That's freeing.
And existing is a big ask.
Yeah. I love that.
It requires a lot of you. And you don't even realize how much is being required of you until you're incapacitated.
Yeah.
Alan, and bring up another book.
Yes.
Because we're talking about grounding and making it real and being kinder and being compassionate. So this is a self-love book that is not sugar-coaty or fluffy in self-love language. It's really like a testament for great living, and it's called Simple Abundance.
Ooh.
And there's several different graces that this book takes you on the journey of a whole year. So it's very simple to read because you're in one contemplation per day. And it's not a religious text by any means, but it's very spiritual in nature. This author actually found herself on Oprah. So it's not because this was part of the Oprah Book Club. She was already a huge author and had very deep knowing and a profound life experience before she wrote it. But I just find, like, the simple tenets like gratitude, like beauty, like joy, and us cultivating that in micro moments throughout our day help us to really realize that, yes, existing is a big ask. And here's the things that I can do to cultivate some type of peace and or whatever else we require in the sanctuary that we need, that is our home, that is our creativity and that is in our day.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, it's called simple abundance. Like, I really wish that every woman, I wish that every woman had this book, bringing pleasure back into things as well, that the feminist agenda is having some distortion around. That it's like, we need to be shamed because maybe later in life you realize that you maybe did actually want to be a mother. I'm like,
Yeah.
what do I do now? Just like all of these things,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't hold staunch opinions on any of it. I just think there's agendas and they cultivate who we are and how we think.
Yeah.
And that it's actually okay to, whatever gender or however you identify, that if there's feminine principles that you're called to and that you resonate with, that there is ways to express that are wholesome.
It's so interesting because I think when you ask the question, like, who are you, or what are your thoughts? What's your identity?
Yeah.
I think a good place to start is, what is the trends? What have been the trends? Like, we talk about the millennials, we talk about feminists, we talk about other cultural things. And it's like, they're almost like this reflections of these like past like 5 years or 10 years. I actually don't know. I'm not an expert, but like, it's like, this is who we were. And so then we're going to label it as the millennial gap or the millennial, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to
Yes.
kind of pay attention to those things and say, do I resonate with that? Is that part of my identity? How was I influenced during that time? How has that impacted me? And how am I still being influenced? You know,
Sure.
it's, our culture is actually giving us a mirror, and we're categorizing things as we're going. So it's, I don't know, it's just interesting.
Well, we said that we wanted to talk about shifting culture, right? That was one
Yeah.
of the topics that I brought up. And that's where this book, Simple Abundance, does such a beautiful thing, or such a beautiful job of crystallizing, because it brings culture really back into your home and your day-to-day experience. You can extend it to your womanhood should you so desire, if that's how you identify, but really bringing it back into your home and your creativity, because that's you allowing your own culture to be formed.
I love that.
And to
Offline
influence.
in the real world.
Yeah, and influencing yourself in the ways that matter and that are reflective of your values.
Yeah.
I really think that I feel excited that being wholesome, quote unquote, and or virtuous is popular again. And if people like don't know what I'm talking about, then take this moment to potentially reflect on that, because it's what I think is cool and a movement that I would love to be championing, that being wholesome and virtuous, there's nothing wrong with you if that's what you've been aiming for, and if you've not had community or belonging because of all of the wild things that you are seeing in culture and feeling left out. Like, babe, you're good. You don't have Botox, still love ya.
Yeah.
Lip injections, you're fine.
Right.
Like, all of these things. And I'm not just talking about body modification. It's whatever that we think that we need to be so outrageous.
Yes.
What?
Right.
You don't.
Right.
That's like, I need attention.
Well, when we all look the same, we have to make ourselves differentiate. So it gets bigger and better. It gets bigger lips. It gets whatever. It gets salacious. Do you know? Because we want to be, look at reality TV. Like, it's all around drama and who's hurting who. Like, no one's celebrating anyone. Anyway, sorry.
Where reality TV is hysterical to me, but
it's scripted.
It's bigger this, it's bigger that. Like, I'm not trying to come across as like this purity culture. Like, if you're not a purity culture, that you're not good, or like the gateway to heaven is going to be closed. That's not where I'm going with that. But I'm just saying, like, what about the bigness of your heart? What about the bigness of your personality? What about the bigness of the ways that you love, that you lead? Like, why are we so led by the superficial? It's a doorway to nowhere. It just tells me that your attention has been totally consumed. You've fallen prey to the machine.
Yeah.
That's what you're actually saying, is like, you're wearing it on the outside. Oh, like, I needed
this and this,
a validation of some kind, but it was actually the self-love that you were looking for within. So when I see that, it's like, I just bless everyone and like spread my angel wings out as I walk down the sidewalk and cast light beams behind me, being like, bless every home, bless every person.
Yeah.
It's just like, those are the things that propel us forward as a species, is the energy that you're projecting outward to create better conditions for all of us. starting with yourself.
Right.
So I'm really like so fascinated by this self-love topic that you brought up, and want people to have practical things like the book, like the nutrition, et cetera, that we're bringing up, because it really matters. And it's the single key that opens every door for suffering on our planet.
Yeah.
Sad.
Could not agree more. I love it. Okay, Jennifer, I mean, we can keep talking. I just feel like, okay, let's fucking talk about this shit. What do you think about that? Like, this is crazy. Can you quickly or non-quickly talk to us about how people can work with you?
Oh, absolutely. I would love that. So I'm available for women that want to be leaders in their lives, their communities, and in service to others in a way that is mature. So spiritual mentorship is available. I do Akashic record readings on a limited basis, but I love to do them, and they're the ultimate game changers. So Akashic record readings, spiritual mentorship, and I also do business advisory. Business advisory, you don't have to have a spiritual business. It's me taking everything from corporate, what works and what doesn't, to apply, advisory to your company or your organization in ways to help you grow and scale just so much faster. But really, I love working with leaders in whatever capacity. You can find that work at bloominstitute.org. So Bloom, like BLOOM institute.org. And I'm available on pretty much every social media channel that you can find.
Yes. And what's your Instagram? Love with Lola?
Love with Lola.
Yeah.
So Lola is me. You'll start to see me as Lola across pretty much every channel. That is just like the archetype and the being that I'm taking on in my artistry. So I desire to go full artist mode. Like books, speaking engagements, all of those things will be done under the name of Lola.
Ooh, fun.
Very shortly, because it just allows me to, it's not actually about personal or professional differentiation. It's that I really do desire to play full out, and I recognize how being playful about it is the journey. Like that is the whole thing, and casting light on all of these shadows. So I really wanted to take on an avatar that was more sincere and genuine to who I am.
Lola for me sounds fun, flirty, like she's just living her life. Like, there's Lola. Yes.
Yeah, I want that for all people everywhere. So yeah, Love with Lola is where to find me, and all channels will be updated to that soon.
Yay. Okay. And we'll put that in the show notes and those book recommendations. And yes, this was so fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you too. It was an ultimate pleasure, and just want to send, an absolute blessing to everyone that's listening today. May their lives be up leveled in whichever way that they've been praying for.
Love that. I also need that. I will receive that right now.
Yeah.
Thanks, girl.
Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you for listening to our show. If you are loving what you're hearing, please go to Apple Podcast and give us a review. We love to hear from you. We'll see you next time.